Hello, everybody. Just sharing like we gotta do every week. All right, you're tagged. Hello, hello. Yes, I do want to share.
I love that nice when that comes up.
I know, it makes it easy. I wish it was consistent. Why don't I see yours?
I don't either. It's in alphabetical order too.
Well,
it's okay. We'll share it later.
Okay. All right. Are we on? Yes, we're on. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right. I'm just gonna leave it. Welcome to Braveheart Conversations. I am Jillian Aurora, and this is my beautiful co-host, Marie Wallace.
Hello, everybody.
Here live with you on Christmas Eve. I'm super happy for you joining us wherever you're joining us from, whether it's live this morning. We go live every Thursday, even Christmas Eve, because we are that badass. But you can find any of our replays on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or our Facebook group, Braveheart Conversations, whatever works best for you. But today I'm thinking of lots of different things as the holidays are here. And there's been a few things I've heard people struggle with that I wanted to address. And one of them being, I've been thinking a lot about how we desire reciprocation. And, you know, we talk a lot to people, specifically women, who struggle with giving, over-giving, and being more on the codependent side of things. And this can really play an issue in the holidays when we actually judge ourselves for not getting any reciprocation. And we'll suppress those feelings instead of addressing them and actually honoring our own needs and advocating for our own desires, which are just as valid. So that's one piece that I want to talk about. The other piece is I hear, Marie and I both work with a lot of people who struggle with toxic relationships. And sometimes we're dealing with relationships that are really on the brink of breakup or divorce. And people know this, but a lot of times we let them kind of limp along and we find excuses for why it's not a good time. And
it's never a good time.
It's never a good time. And the holidays tend to be a really great excuse to not honor our needs and leave a relationship that's really just not working. And I actually have a little bit of a tragic / funny story because I think a lot of our traumatic, tragic stories are also humorous looking back.
They are when you get to look back.
So just on the topic of leaving a toxic relationship in the midst of the holidays, I just want to share my own experience, which I find rather funny looking back. And I was married to an alcoholic for 5 years, and this was several years ago, but we were really on the rocks. He was drinking very, very heavily all day long, and would get very angry. And I think it was 2 days before Christmas that he had left in our motorhome, and he took with him all the presents. You know, he was done. He was going to be gone for a month or whatever the story was.
But he took the presents.
He took his presents. And he unwrapped them all. I had gone through great lengths to I've always been someone that I'll put little notes and I'll make it all foo-foo special. And so he had unwrapped all these presents. He had thrown some of them away in his drunken stupor, and then came back Christmas Eve, and somehow I was going to salvage the day I rewrapped every present so that we could have a normal Christmas the next day. And, looking back, it's hilarious to me the lengths that I was willing to go to really fake having a
Being
good
happy
Christmas.
too on Christmas. Yeah.
Because obviously, obviously, I could pretend we're having a good Christmas, but uh, there's really no way that you can make that situation good. So, and then we had an agreement that Christmas morning, there wouldn't be any drinking until the afternoon, and then he could go retreat to the motorhome. And I ended up going out with a friend of mine for dinner and a movie Christmas night. And I look back at just the sadness of that whole story, and I ended up leaving, I think, like 3 days after Christmas. It had gotten to the point where it just was not safe or livable anymore. And but by God, I was gonna make it work through Christmas, and I did. But man, at what cost? And it was all forced. It was all fake.
Yeah.
So I know that there are other women out there just as tenacious as I was. But is that really fulfilling? And, when we're just pushing it out a few more days, what is it costing us? And is it really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you are telling yourself that it's not a good time, and you're telling yourself, I can't because it's Christmas, I can't because of the kids, I can't because of whatever.
I have this thing planned, and
we have a party, we have people coming over, whatever the thing is. I've so been there. First of all, I've so been there, and I've made all the excuses, and I have held the waters, the storm at bay.
and smiled through it. I've smiled through it.
I was a master at the fake smile and pretending. I was great at all that shit. And no more today. No more. Today, if something is shit, I'm just gonna admit that it's done. It's awful. It's hell. It's okay to be honest. You don't have to be positive and fake all the time. Mm-hmm. I think that's a lie that we've been told, is that we're supposed to hold it all together. We're supposed to keep it private. That was a big thing.
Lady, be nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hold it all together.
To keep it private. Oh, yeah.
Especially during the holidays, mm-hmm. right? We're supposed to be positive, and some of that stuff is just not positive. What was happening in my life in that moment was not positive. It was awful. Mm-hmm. And I kept it all a secret. I pretended everything was fine. And I kept myself from a lot of the help and support that would have been there, because I was so embarrassed and ashamed mm-hmm. about what was going on. And especially during the holidays, you want everybody to see you doing well and being happy. Mm-hmm. And so that was, that was a big lesson. That was a hard lesson. Marie, do you recall any specific times that holidays have been like, oh gosh, I gotta pretend that everything is together, but it's really not?
Quite a few times. Just where I think going back to an expectation, you take great care, and I think women in general mm-hmm. take great care to make the holidays special. And I do that for my kids. I do that for people that are close into my circle. And if it's disregarded, I think that's what's the most painful for me. Like, I don't know how to put it, just that it wasn't regarded as something that I had done, that I had worked hard on to make it special, to bring people close. I really love family around this time of the year, and just people just sort of going, it's just a thing, and so disregarded that it wasn't special or that I hadn't put effort into it. That's happened a couple of
Yeah.
times, and it's very painful
Yeah.
because you have poured. I have poured my whole self into it. Not that they need to do anything to nurture it, just to honor and respect it.
Yeah.
I think that's all that I'm asking for there. Would it be great if everybody was there and together? Awesome,
Yeah.
yes. But if you're not able to make it, then say something. If you are, there was something else that you had said that I'd really related to. Just honoring the people that are in your life and not faking it. It was
Yeah.
so, yes, sometimes the events still happened anyway. I just don't want to be inauthentic. I don't want to
Mhm.
pretend like it doesn't hurt. I don't want to pretend like it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'll be very forthcoming and upfront with it about how I feel. And back to what you said too, just it's okay for me to desire to want these people in my life and want them to be part of things. And yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Mostly it's just honoring of each other during this thing and being authentic, because they may not even know that it hurt, and it's something for me to go out there and say, yes, this was a painful experience and these are the reasons why. And they may or may not. My guess is they probably do, but they may not know how much it really hurts. And so just to be honest with how I feel, and to know that it's okay that these things happen, because life happens, right?
Mhm.
This, if anything, 2020 taught us is life happens. Get that. Just to be honoring on both sides, and maybe deliver expectations of how we could resolve it.
I like, what's coming up for me is it's really important to recognize, even in the situation looking back that I just described, um, you know, he wasn't capable of giving more
Mm-hmm.
than what was
Yeah.
coming back. Even though it was a lesson in self worth for me, I certainly did not have to diminish myself to that level.
Right.
I did not have to accept that amount of unhappiness and mistreatment. I didn't need to do that. That was a reflection of my own worth and my own standards. But I also get to acknowledge that that was really the best that he could show up with at
That's
the
a very
time.
good lesson.
And, my expectations of him weren't going to change anything. I really just needed to see what was happening at face value,
Mm-hmm.
and then um, decide to act in accordance with my own self worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I still get to see that with compassion and grace, that
Mm-hmm.
he didn't choose to be sick. He didn't choose to have he was experiencing his own pain,
Sure.
really. He was also not happy.
Right.
And while I don't have to suffer for someone else's illness, I can say, I really see what you're going through. I empathize with what you're going through, and I'm
Yes.
also not going to stick around for it. I'm not going to be, beat over the head with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, it's going back to what we always talk about. What honors you honors everyone, and
Absolutely.
honoring them in whatever happened, because life does happen and there are disappointments. And I love that you brought up that compassion for what happened on their side. It just doesn't mean we have to tolerate it,
Mm-hmm.
or or say that's okay. I
Yep.
mean, it wasn't okay what's happened, but it is understandable, and there is a lots of room for compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the other thing, going back to my story, um, with, an alcoholic husband, I rewrap all his gifts, and
Because you won't know what's in them either.
yeah, he's already opened these, he's already seen them, but I'm gonna salvage Christmas. Um, I look back at my own behavior and I realize it was simply a reflection. The holidays are really just an extreme example of what we're typically doing all year long. And what I was doing in that moment was I was attaching my worth. I was really trying to earn my worth, and earn love through creating this great Christmas experience, right?
Yeah.
And I really believed that if I just, gave him enough presents, gave him enough love, gave him enough, special, meaningful things, because I think at that particular time I had cut up pieces of my vows and put them in each present.
Aww.
Like I was really trying to be enough. I was trying so hard to be enough, and that if I just was good enough, then he would love me and he would give me that love back. And this is not ever how love works. And it was a very painful learning experience for me. And I think that this is such a big piece of the holidays. So many of us are doing this, where we're trying to make it special enough, make it good enough, so that we measure up, because we've attached our worth to whatever experience we're creating. And so then if it's not received the way that we want it to, then we take it as if we aren't good enough. We take it as if we aren't lovable. And that was what I took from that experience in that moment. And I was crushed because of it, because I thought that his disease, his alcoholism and his behavior was somehow a reflection that I wasn't good enough. And it had nothing to do with me, really. So this is the piece, we talked about in the beginning, that I find it's really important to talk about reciprocation, because we often are reducing ourselves. We're trying to earn reciprocation instead of just being with someone who is reciprocating just because. It's not something to be earned. Love isn't something to be earned. And I think the holidays really accentuate that, where if we are trying to earn love, it's really going to come out. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think in the other respect, so my situation was a little bit different in that what was happening is lots of other people come first.
Yeah.
And when other people come first all the time, and what sometimes we're put on the back burner. And I think it's because we're okay with, people being doing their own thing. We're really okay with that and everything. I think what with us it was, when do you prioritize and make this relationship, whether it's a family dynamic, a friend dynamic, because I've had that happen, a relationship dynamic, when do you prioritize and put that relationship up front and not on a back burner? Well, and it goes back to, I know these people love me. I know these people will understand whether I have work or family or things come up. Totally get that. I think the request is when do we become a priority? And we've not asked for that. And I think that's where we fell short, is we haven't asked for that priority or had that conversation. And we're not afraid to have the conversation, but it's not until it's brought up to you again where you go, oh, I haven't had that conversation, where it's important. It's important to prioritize and have this time. So that got us off a little bit, but also how important it is to have these conversations, whatever they may be.
For real. So I think this is a huge shadow where often we aren't advocating for ourselves. So I actually posted a question in my group this morning, because I love questions. I think they're super powerful. And my question this morning was, are we, how many of us are prioritizing everybody else's needs and desires at Christmas time and suppressing and judging our own desires and our own desire for reciprocation? And very often we've made that bad and wrong, instead of being willing to have the conversation and advocate and say, actually, I really am desiring, I'm really wanting some equal contribution and some equal priority, right?
Mm.
And so this is I think a big
Because I like you.
yeah, and this is such a feminine shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about this during Thanksgiving as well.
Oh, we
talked
did.
about. Hang on, my cats are like I don't know
Sticking
what
their
they're
paws
doing.
under the door.
They're going crazy right now. Oh, my cats! I swear, they're always a blast. I've got a cat that knocked off the whole cabinet.
Oh, it's kind of funny because you see these paws every once in a while slide under the door.
I gotta love them. They keep my life interesting. Anyway, yeah, I think we talked about this at Thanksgiving when we as women take on this role of creating the perfect holiday and we do all the cooking and we do all the cleaning and we do all the stuff.
We don't ask anybody to help us
We
clean
don't
up.
ask anyone to help, and it becomes an assumption. It becomes, we are just the assumed role. And it's shadow on both sides. I have a part to play in that because I'm not asking.
I never said. Yeah, I never said. And it's an expected thing.
And I'm not requiring. So it's not just asking, but it's also requiring. And that was something that came up for me as you were talking too. Like, now I have different requirements to be in my space or to be in relationships with me because they get to have equal contribution. They get to have equal thoughtfulness and equal consideration. And it's not that I'm forcing someone to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I am forcing all of my family to be that way. It's if I see that someone's true colors are that they are consuming and taking from me more than they are pouring in, then I'm just not available for those relationships anymore. It's not that I see what they're doing. Yes, I'll have the conversation because sometimes we just need communication.
Sure, yeah,
right?
Sometimes it's a miscommunication.
But we know when someone is interested in just consuming us, right? And if you get defensiveness when you're like, I'm really pulling a lot of the weight here. Do you mind making me more of a priority? And if the response you get back is defensiveness and, well, what do you mean? And you already know that the true colors that you're seeing it's not an equal exchange. And so when I see that now, I get to honor myself. I get to honor my own standards and requirements by removing myself from that situation. And that may or may not be removing myself from the entire relationship.
Sure.
It may be removing myself from a situation or a conversation. It may be that I just create different boundaries around how I interact with that person. But I know today that I am responsible for what I'm available for or not available for, and I'm responsible for respecting my own self-worth. No one else can respect me more than I respect myself. So I get to hold that standard.
Exactly.
And the holidays are no different. We find a lot of ways to excuse ourselves from our standards, like somehow it's a magical time that nobody has to treat us well.
We give them a hall pass because it's a holiday.
We do. We let people walk on us during the holidays because we somehow think it's some time for exemption. And boundaries are my boundaries all the time.
All the time.
It's never okay to not be respectful. I offer people respect during the holidays, and other people get to offer me respect. And if that's not on the table, then I'm not on the table.
Well, and we want that to be. We definitely want it to come to our attention if we've overstepped and not.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so we totally would want someone to say, "Hey, you know what? You missed my birthday." If that's whatever the thing is. hey, I really planned this thing difficult and it felt like you didn't honor it,
Yep.
or whatever. I would definitely want someone to tell me
Yes.
when I had missed out or not been as thoughtful as I
Yes.
could be. And so, yeah, it's having that reciprocated is definitely okay.
And that's what I'm saying as far as having those difficult conversations. You and I want accountability, right? We
Definitely.
want someone to call us out if we have a blind spot. And I think that that is really the true measure of relationships for me. Honoring relationships is both parties are desiring the knowledge of how to make it better, and how to honor each other at a greater level. We're open to that. We're craving that, desiring that.
That's how you get the better, more deep relationships,
Yes.
is because you have had those conversations. It makes these relationships so much stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you have one side that's just defensive, and is closed off to hearing about how they've been hurtful, or are completely closed off to any changes, then that's a huge red flag. And I do see that being excused a lot during
Yeah.
the holidays. And I find that sometimes we're even making excuses for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know for me, going back to that example that I gave with my former husband, I was making a lot of excuses for his terrible behavior, right? I was, he's sick,
Mm-hmm.
he is not capable of anything better, he's dealing with this horrible thing, which he was. And that still doesn't excuse mistreating me. That still doesn't mean that I have to stick around for that,
Mm-hmm.
or should, or even that that is the most loving thing, because I really believe that sticking around for someone else's mistreatment and abuse of you is actually the least loving thing that you could do for them as well.
Well, and I want to go back to the beginning where we said it's never a good time to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I just want to really quickly say hello to
hi.
our guests here, Nikki. Good morning. Merry Christmas Eve. Um,
Hi,
Nicole,
Richard.
I don't know if you're on here yet, but Merry Christmas Eve to you as well. And Richard, hello, hello. Thanks for joining us today. So, yeah, you were saying leaving toxic
Oh, yeah.
relationships, and it's never a good time.
Never.
Yeah, so Christmas isn't ever going to feel like a good time, but
We're the real thing is we feel that we're not ready, and pain is coming, and so you're just sort of backing yourself up and giving yourself excuses.
mm-hmm.
It's going to be painful no matter when you do it, and being real and authentic with yourself, that you'll know, seriously, in your heart, you'll know when the right time is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wake up and it's the right time and tomorrow's Christmas, it's still never a good time. It's just, yeah, it's just the way it is.
Yep, and just faking it to get through it is
Faking it.
it's not really gonna
Honoring
bring
of
you
anyone, yeah.
genuine happiness. I know for me, in that example, yes, I made it through Christmas morning, and we followed our agreement, and he went to start drinking in the afternoon, and I went out with a friend, and but was that really the Christmas that I was capable of having? Absolutely not. I could have chosen to honor myself at a much different level, and been around people who were able to reciprocate and give that back to me. So again,
But no judgment if you're not ready, right?
Mhm.
Like, so if you're,
that was where I was at.
that's
in the
where
moment.
you're at. You're at
And
where you're at.
and that experience was gold for me, because it really reflected back to me my self-worth, and became something that was helpful for me in my growth, and leveling up my own view of myself, my own self-worth, because we can settle for as long as we want to settle, right? And I did. For a long time I settled, and then eventually I became more and more aware, and I said, I'm not going to settle anymore. And today, I'm very aware of that. I will not settle. I do not need to settle. So if you
You don't get the
are,
relationship you want settling.
no. And if you're there, then that's okay. This is all a journey. There's
It
no
is.
judgment in wherever you're at in it. And
We're just explaining our journey. So
and that was
there's some
necessary
nuggets
for
in
me.
there for you, yeah.
That was necessary. I'm grateful that I went through every bit of that. I'm grateful that I walked that path.
Even if it's never again, will I?
Mhm.
Sometimes that's what the lesson is never again will I be in accept less in this situation.
I would not at all have the clarity that I have today had I not walked through that whole journey.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Christmas, there was a whole lot of other things. But
several events along the way.
But I'm really grateful for it all because it gave me a level of clarity that I could not have had otherwise. A level of clarity about codependency, a level of clarity about self betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all things that are part of my path today that I get to massively impact other women. And so there are no mistakes. Your path is exactly what it's meant to be. And if you're not ready to let go right now, that's okay. But I would encourage you to start facing the truth of stop telling yourself it's a bad time. It may not be the right time for you because you may not be ready, and that's perfectly fine. But stop giving yourself the excuses that it just needs to be, when it's not the holidays, it just needs to be when it's, not our anniversary or I don't know, tax season. Like there's anything that you can say it's not a good time. You'll know when it's the right time for you. And that's what's important. You'll know when it's the right time for you. So, anyway, holidays, don't be afraid to demand what you need and respect that yourself because you're the only one that can give you what your desires and your needs are. But don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and there's no shame in holding your standards high, no shame in meeting your own needs and not just everyone else's. And don't forget that today, Christmas and Christmas Eve, Christmas, honor yourself. You're just as important as all of those other people that you're taking care of, whether that's a spouse, children, partners, parents, family members. You are just as valid, as important. And I know that we've had lifetimes full of people telling us otherwise and that you're selfish and demanding and inconvenient and all these other things.
That changes now.
Yeah. And I'm just here to remind you, you have full permission to honor yourself. And that is actually the most honoring for everyone else. And you're not selfish and wrong for wanting reciprocation and wanting the same level of love that you're dishing out. So with that, I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. And I hope that you will join us again next week, Thursday.
Merry Christmas.
We would love for you to reach out with any topic requests. We've got a couple coming up over the next couple of weeks, but if you would like to contribute your suggestions, you're welcome to email myself at defytheaverage@gmail.com or
Marie at mariesgold.com. We love those things.
Absolutely. And you can always join us on our Facebook group, Braveheart Conversations, and find us on all the other platforms to find our past episodes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close up. We will see you next week right before the new year.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for 2021 and all the love to you. You are all so loved. And I hope that you have the most happy, jolly Christmas ever. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.